All right, let's get straight into our conversation tonight, which is about food security in northwestern Nigeria. This has continued to be a pressing issue, particularly in states like Katsina, Zamfara, and Sokoto, who are facing acute food insecurity due to factors like conflict and insecurity, economic instability, as well as limited access to major food hub and essential supplies. In May 2024, the annual inflation rate reached a 28-year record high of 33.95%. While food inflation rose to 40.53%, driven by factors including currency depreciation, high transportation, and import costs. But malnutrition cases already surging well before the traditional peak season. Doctors Without Borders fear that 2025 could bring an even graver crisis. They warn that without immediate intervention, northern Nigeria could see record levels of malnutrition, leading to increased child mortality rate. Well, joining me tonight to discuss these are two gentlemen, a Greek economy expert and immediate past Deputy Governor of Kebbi State, Colonel Samala Yombe-Dabai, retired, and agricultural business analyst, Dr. Olukayode Oyeleye. Good evening to you, Your Excellency, and Dr. Oyeleye. Welcome to Politics Tonight. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Good evening.
Good evening to you. Gentlemen, let me start this way, because food security means that all people at all times have physical, social, economic access to sufficient, safe and nutritious food that meets their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life, as defined by the World Food Summit in 1996 and further revised in 2001. Mr. President declared a state of emergency upon assumption of office, and I wonder how we're fared as a country towards achieving food security across the country. Dr. Oyeleye, I would like you to help us dissect the available indices.
Okay, good evening once again, and thanks for having me.
Thank you.
And good evening to Honorable co-speaker on the other side. Let me begin by saying that you've just reeled out some statistics, and these are really concerning. And I want to say, to begin with, that these statistics are supposed to spur us into action at the national level as well as the various states level. Where we are presently calls for concerted efforts, because when we talk about food and nutrition, it's very much tied to health and even human performance. Then, of course, economy is the ultimate yardstick that we will have to now begin to look at, as when we talk about the impact of nutrition or food generally. Now, let me say this very quickly, that the events the world over presently call for serious attention in matters of food and nutrition. We are not dealing only with bulk when we're talking about food and nutrition. We're dealing also with the micronutrients, which are very, very essential for the various aspects of our daily living, which we just cannot do without. And how much of this do we have in the right place in this country? This is very important for us to consider. Now, a lot of things we are looking at when it comes to food and nutrition, they deal more with the urban centers. Our rural communities, essentially the countryside, where the food is being produced, they largely suffered a lot of neglect in terms of attention and policy intervention. Meanwhile, these are the areas where the food we consume, even in the urban center, are coming from. And I will quickly say this also, that now that we are beginning to feel the impact of a reduction in foreign aid coming to us, I think it calls also for serious refocusing, internally, in trying to make sure that we achieve food self-sufficiency in the country. Now, yes, of course, there had been a declaration of state of emergency, but to what extent has that impacted on the lives of an average Nigerian? These are some of the essential issues that we need to be looking at. And then how are the states buying into the idea of producing food to be able to feed the people. And our young ones that are going to school, especially the elementary school, which need a lot of not just bulk food, but nutrient-dense food to be able to help them so that they can, do well in their academics. How much of these nutritious foods are they exposed to? I think these are some of the things. So the subject matter you are bringing on board tonight is very, very broad. And right. I'm not really sure that the short time space tonight will be enough for us to be able to exhaustively deal with it.
I agree with you, Dr. Ileye. So let me go to Cornell. Cornell, if you can hear me, we all know why food security is so important. It's an investment in wider stability and security. But for the Northwest, this region faces escalating food insecurity and malnutrition, with an estimated 2.9 million people critically food insecure. This number is projected to increase to 4.3 million for obvious reasons. Insecurity top of the list. Has there been an improvement lately?
Yeah, first of all, good evening and thank you for having me. When you talk about food security, and I start thinking of the threat to that security. Because if you don't produce food and take it out, then you wouldn't be talking about other things, nutrition, and availability, and so on. You have to produce whatever you have to consume first before you're able to take it out for consumption. Now, there are certain threats that we must consider to this production, food production. Let's take rice, for example. All rice, sorghum, maize, etc. There are a series of threats that are posed in producing these crops. There is quilla birds. Quilla birds are all little birds that carry out destruction, a mass destruction of our food. So unless we narrow, I will narrow my conversation in dealing with this threat. Then I let the doctor talk about the other scientific and what have you. Now, these quilla birds are transboundary pests, and they are known to destroy en masse rice farms in such a manner that it calls for concern. In 2013 and 2014, I carried out a research as to imagine or to come out with the level of destruction by these birds. My study covered Borno, Yobe, Katsina, Zamfara, Sokoto, and Kebbi. And I beamed at rice production.
Well, Cornell, it's been a year since the Kebbi State hosted a program describing killer birds as inimical to agricultural productivity and national food security. I also remember that in the same year, the state government started an area spray to control these birds. What's the situation of things now?
From that period till now, there had been a lot of development. Now, the Kebbi State, for example, realized that they have the facility available because my company that is responsible for this service, we provide this service, are based in Kebbi. And so when the time for this boundary pests come in, we'll be right at the front to carry out their control. From that time to date, there have been reasonable difference in terms of response. Now the state government pay attention in terms of getting the materials ready to carry out the pest control. And the result is remarkable. Before they start devastating, the control will begin. And so, of course, they'll come and do a little bit, but not significant.
All right, I'll come back to you, Your Excellency. Dr. Ile, let me come to you. These 7 northwestern states of Jigawa, Kaduna, Kano, Katsina, Kebbi, Sokoto, and Zamfara are these 7 northwestern states in the region. And some state governments have, started making efforts towards clearing, or rather creating a clear vision of increased productivity, providing an enabling environment for such productivity and building on this productivity to improve their internal revenue generation. Is the same with other Northwest governors?
Well, that's a very big question. It's like you want me to talk for the politicians. And
no. It is for you to assess. It is for you to assess the level at which they've gone in achieving food security in their respective states.
Okay. Well, what I would say is that presently now, this time of the year, we are in April now, and those states you mentioned, essentially, they are in the northern Savannah region, and some of them border on some part of Sahel. And so if I get things right, I believe that rains have not started in those places. So at the very most, what they will be doing now is land preparation, except for areas that are very close to major rivers, and those of them that use irrigation facilities like Kano and Jigawa State, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, some parts of Kebbi State also. So where the River Basin Authority system is still very much operational, those states will no doubt by now have started some cultivation, and that would not be the rain-fed agriculture for the year. So to that extent, maybe those are the ones we should be talking about in terms of readiness now. But the rest could at best have just made land preparation, waiting for the rains.
But still evaluating rather the activities of these state governors. And I'm asking you this question because you and your colleagues will say Nigeria cannot achieve economic freedom and eradicate poverty without being productive, especially in agriculture, where we have a comparative advantage. And I'm asking both of you this question with reference to Niger State and North Central states, by the way, where evidently the state government is doing all it can to achieve or accomplish the vision of food sufficiency. In Kaduna State, which is one of the northwestern states, the state government says it is committed to providing food for its citizens and residents. Would you say the same for other northwestern states? Or how do you again evaluate the activities of these northwestern governors?
Okay, you've talked about comparative advantages, and I think when it comes to food production generally, I think all the northern states of Nigeria have this comparative advantage of producing a wide variety of food items, particularly grains. And these are essentially short duration crops. All of the states are definitely not on the same level of preparation. And year in, year out, it has not been the case. So it will only be an interesting thing if other states, apart from those you mentioned, are actually gearing up to be able to do something greater and better than before. And also don't forget that the issue of insecurity is a major hindrance presently. It's a major, it's a major problem now. Many communities are prevented from going to the farms. And I think I heard only recently, a couple of days ago, that there were some farmers that were slaughtered in one of the northwestern states. That is during this period of Salah. And in communities like that, fears will not let them go to the farm. And you can imagine how that will affect farming activities, especially as we speak, and then the result of it going forward. So I leave the Colonel also to make comments on this, because I think he is very much, let me say, on the ground to be able to assess it right now and then inform us better.
All right, Colonel, let me come back to you. Before you react to that same question, talking about killer birds, these birds don't go away easily, or sadly they never go away. Are there no permanent solution to this huge challenge?
Well, first of all, let us look at quail birds. We have two different types of quail birds.
Okay.
There is the red beak and then the black big quail, and those are the indigenous quail. The red beak are those transboundary type that come in millions. And the only way to stop or to discourage their devastation is to attack them. The way we do using fentanyl and by aircraft spraying where they nest, and well, that is one of the threats we have. The doctor mentioned the bandits that disturb our farmers. That is worrisome too. But of recent period, most of the areas that have been attacked by this bandit, the attack has reduced, especially in the southern part of Kebbi State, where they are bordered with Zamfara. The bandits' activities there have reduced drastically. The only problem we now have is ready to face the quail birds, and of course, this is their season.
All right, Colonel, let me stay with you. But is it okay to assume that the expected level of commitment or synergy that should exist between or amongst the northwestern state governors is not there, and that's why this challenge of killer birds persists?
No, the control of killer birds is rested on the shoulders of the federal government. And
the federal government?
Yes. The federal government provides the services that carry out the quail birds control.
So what kind of services are you talking about, Colonel?
They provide the flight hours and the chemicals with which to spray and carry out the control of quail birds. And the present administration really do a very good job because they provide these facilities in time. You have to get the flight hours and then the chemicals on ground before the quail birds start migrating into these areas. So as soon as they come, they are faced with the spraying activities, and so the level of devastation will be minimal.
Interesting.
So I really praise the present administration because of their reaction, quick reaction to the problem of posed by quail birds.
But do you think the federal government is doing enough to tackle this menace?
Yeah, they are doing a fantastic job. And of course, the state governments also they complement the efforts of the federal government in some areas, especially Borno, Sokoto, and Kebbi. For example, they are given, say 200 hours to carry out pest control in their states. Some of them include additional 50 hours and more chemicals so that the attack will be effective. And as much as possible, there will be mass reduction of these birds to reduce devastation.
All right, Colonel, having talked about the threat to achieving food security in some of the northwestern states, let's now talk about solutions to addressing other challenges. And I want you to talk to us about the role of Comprehensive Agricultural Revolution Program in promoting food security in the northwestern region.
Well, okay. Sorry, Doctor. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Did you get that question, Colonel?
Was that to me?
Yes, that was for you.
Oh, okay. Well, in my opinion, it's necessary to really get rid of this threat, bandits threat, because like the doctor said, the farmers get scared of going to the farm and because their colleagues are being slaughtered. And again, the federal government, I would advise to further increase their participation in area pest control, especially in Borno and Kebbi axis, because that's where the Quail birds first touch ground before they start going around into other areas in the northern states.
All right. Dr. Yele, let me come to you because Katsina, Zamfara, and Sokoto states have been identified as food insecurity and malnutrition hotspots. And according to statistics, in Sokoto State, for instance, approximately 900,000 people are currently acutely food insecure, with projections for an increase to 1.2 million during the lean season. How do we solve this problem? Because this population also serve as easy recruits as bandits, insurgents.
Well, okay. I think we have been seeing the signs of the various problems, some of which you just mentioned and some not yet mentioned over the years, and they've been recurring. And I think what we need to do, I will quickly itemize. Let me start with the issue of weather. We don't have much control over weather, but at least the farmers need to have weather reports to help them to be able to know how to go about their farming activities, the time to plant, time to harvest, how to store, and all of that. Because of now, almost annually now, by the time we get to like around August, September, the season of flood will come. And floods have been ravaging many farms in the northern part of the country. That of last year was particularly pathetic. And it can still come again this year. So flood control is one of those things. And I'll put this under a general category of emergency preparedness. Then the colonel mentioned the problem of Quail bird, which is actually an annually occurring crisis. And there's a need also to make preparation to ensure that these birds don't do much damage, to agricultural products, particularly our grains.
So how best, Dr. Yele, let me comment, how best do we prepare for this emergency?
Okay, to prepare for this emergency, so let me just say this. We need to, first of all, identify the various emergencies, and then we put men and materials and money in place to be able to help to respond to them. But this is not only the work for Ministry of Agriculture or ministries of agriculture in the state and the federal government alone. We have NEMA, for instance, the Emergency Management Agency, needs to work with these various states and identify what are the peculiar emergencies in each of these states and see how to prepare, first and foremost, those that need to be prevented. And if they are preventable, you prevent. Those that we need just mitigation. If you can't prevent them, you talk about mitigation. And then, of course, human beings themselves, how to safeguard their their lives and their livelihoods too, because losses that are incurred in most cases are not actually compensated for. And so if we don't make ways to compensate for these farmers when they have incurred losses, of course, it actually diminishes also their resources, their financial and material resources. So we need to account for this. This is where the issue also of actually enumerating farmers and having their biodata for all the states is very important. Because whatever targeting is being done that does not have statistics as the bedrock is at best a magician's work, and it will be based on guesstimate, and is also prone to corruption and mismanagement of funds. And so we need to have data, we need to have statistics, and that can easily be done, and it's not very difficult. If we can have words, for electoral purposes, if we can, distill down, the presence of politicians to the ward level, we can use that system also to be able to reach these farmers, because all parts of this country belong to one ward or the other, under this political system. So we can use that. Another thing again is market information service. We need to actually strengthen our market information service because one, many of the farmers don't have control over the prices of what they produce. And in seasons of distress and environmental disasters or any form of emergency, farmers also are vulnerable. So we need to at least help to be able to reduce the level of their exposure. This is very, very important. And then still talking about the issue of emergency. The issue of insecurity is one of the issues we need to deal with very extensively, because this is actually, it has become a nationwide problem, north, south, east, and west of the country. So we need to take, extra steps in trying to make sure that the lives of the farmers are secure. And then, of course, the damages that have been done by these bandits, also even to crops, go into farms, cutting down crops indiscriminately, and so on and so forth, damaging farm produce and all of those things. These are things that need to also we need to prepare against, because one, it boils down to one thing: food security. Okay. And if we are not able to tackle this problem, it actually leads to food insecurity.
All right, I may be wrong, but I mean, if it looks like the only way or the only solution to addressing the issue of killer birds is to prepare ahead of them, when do we start preparing? What is the time frame?
Okay, I think studies have been done. Okay, is that for the Cornell?
Yes, Cornell, please go ahead with that.
Yeah, okay. State of readiness for aerial control must not be when the states report the presence of these killer birds. I strongly suggest that the necessary requirements, logistic requirements for control of killer birds are made in the field, so that when the birds come, we don't have to waste time in controlling them. Although there is some development now, some of the logistic requirements are met within a specific time, but it is necessary also for the states to begin control before the federal government comes in, because they are in the field. They know when the birds arrive, and of course they will bridge the gap between that time the federal government will get ready to the time they come and carry out the control. So if these two, like the doctor mentioned, all the ministries, the federal and the state ministries, should be on ground before the birds arrive. Because when they arrive, it means they have started the devastation already.
Okay.
So to avoid that, we have to be on ground, boots on ground, and we start controlling it almost immediately.
All right. Dr. Ile, let me have your input on that as well.
Okay, so the Colonel had mentioned earlier on about studies being done. Okay. I mean, the essence of all these studies is to provide baseline information to guide in the area of intervention. The life cycle of these birds have been studied, and how they reproduce, how they live, how they move from one place to another. And he has mentioned one thing that is very, very critical. They are transboundary in their activities. Today you find them in Nigeria, tomorrow you can find them in Burkina Faso or in Benin Republic. So we need to also understand how they move around. Of course, that knowledge is going to be very important in reducing their influx when they move out, to make sure that when they are moving back in, we can keep them at bay. And that also then means that we've got to work with these neighboring countries, because it's not enough to try to keep them away from Nigeria. If there's anything that can be done also, collaboratively with these neighboring countries, Niger, Burkina Faso, Benin Republic, even as further afield as Chad Republic, Cameroon to the east. I think all of these we need to factor in, since it is not something. I mean, like you mentioned, the two types of queller birds, for instance, those of them that move far and wide. We need to think about how to contain them. Those ones that spend much more of their times within the boundaries of Nigeria, we also need to track them down and then restrict them. I think this is one of the things that we need to do, because they do a lot of damage that in the end, boils down to, probably millions or billions of naira in terms of, losses. And then, of course, denying human population the food that they are supposed to get. Yep.
All right, Dr. Ilere, let me take you up on other matters. And this is because I know we've had this conversation before, sometime last year, but it keeps recurring. Most times the issue with agriculture in Nigeria is improved crop yields. How can our farmers be assisted to get more yields for crops?
Okay. Well, to get more yields, first and foremost, we need to talk about the kind of varieties that are cultivated. So, these are times when we have the benefit of improved varieties of various crops. Again, our various ministries of agriculture need to work. We have, I think, 16 agricultural research institutes in this country that have various crop mandates. So our ministries of agriculture at the state and at the federal level need to work with them because they research into various aspects of agriculture and food production. And so we need to avail ourselves of the knowledge emanating from these institutes. That's number one. Number two, is still coming down to things that we can benefit from these research institutes. Soil. What are the issues around the soil? What are the problems of the soil? Again, we need to find out from these experts and take advantage of what they have to offer. And of course, we need to know about the weather, the rainy season, when it commences, when there's a break, when it resumes, and when it ends. And so this will help us to be able to know when to cultivate, and then, of course, when we should be expecting to harvest, and how to also guard against losses. But generally speaking, to increase our agricultural produce, we need to make so much use of modern technologies and the knowledge emanating from these various research institutes. The work they do is not meant to be kept on the shelf. It's meant to be used by the farmers. This brings the idea of extension services in. And we have a lot of Nigerians that are trained, young and older, that are trained in the area of extension services. How much of their services are we making use of? Because knowledge is very important. And this extension service experts have been trained to be able to disseminate information, knowledge about better agricultural practices to the farmers. And so they know how to reach the various farmers with the relevant information that could help them. So we've really been underutilizing the extension services in agricultural practices in Nigeria. We need to step up on this. It's very, very important. Right. And I will say one more thing again. We talk about post-harvest, storage, processing, and all of those things. There are also issues that we need to pay a lot more of attention to because we experience a lot of post-harvest losses because of poor handling. And so we need to pay a lot of attention to that so as to reduce losses post-harvest. And then to prolong the shelf life of some of these products also, we need to also take advantage of what the food scientists have done in the area of food processing that would actually prolong the shelf life of many of what we produce from our farms.
All right. Colonel, let me come to you. In an era where technology plays a pivotal role in agriculture, Kebbi State, for instance, with Dr. Nasir Idris in office, to what extent has this administration looked into this direction? Has it embraced innovation as a means to enhance productivity? And I'm talking about promoting the use of digital platforms for information, dissemination, market access, and financial services. How important are they?
Oh, they are very important because these platforms provide necessary information for action. Take, for example, my area of specialty, area pest control. The field officers need equipment such as GPSs, so that they'll be able to take a record of where they see the birds nesting, and through which, of course, we will get that information, feed it in our GPS to lead us to where the target is. So there is the need for the field officers to receive more training on the use of these equipment so that to enhance a more effective area pest control.
All right, finally, before I let you go, Dr. Eleye, I think the crux of this conversation should also be about increasing local production and protecting local companies. What must be done by these states if they really need business?
Can I hear you again?
Dr. Eleye, did you get that? So I said the crux of this conversation should also be about increasing local production and protecting local companies. So what more can be done by these states if they really mean business, which is advancing agricultural productivity in their various states?
Okay, in the various states.
Yes, the northwestern states.
Yeah, a lot more. In northwestern states.
Yes.
Okay, fine. I think one of the things I actually missed out has been added by the colonel, the area of pest control. A lot of pests, apart from the mention of Koala, there are other pests that are reducing agricultural productivity, and so we need to think about how to address those. And then, of course, there's a need for government to go all out to recruit, because this is very important. We're talking now about generational shift. We need to begin to recruit younger people. It has to be targeted and a deliberate policy to really bring in more of the younger generation into. It is not so much.
All right. All right. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Colonel Samaila Younbeh-Dabai, retired, a Greek economic expert and immediate past deputy governor of Kebbi State. Also, Dr. Olukayode Oyeleye, a Greek business analyst. Thank you so much for speaking with us tonight on Politics Tonight. Please have a great weekend. Thank you. And thank you very much for watching, everyone. It marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight. But before we go, let's tell you that the views and reactions of our resource persons are theirs and have no connection with TVC News. Meanwhile, you can watch the repeat broadcast of this episode at midnight. Get in touch with us on our social media handles, Facebook, Instagram, and X at TVC News NG and at Olajumoke using the hashtag Politics Tonight. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Good night, everyone.